Hello everyone, I hope you're well. I'm Callum, I run Repair Wins, which is an electronics repair business, and in the video today I need to fix 3 of these 4 laptops. Now you might wonder why I've only got to fix 3 of them when there's 4 here. I've got a customer who literally tomorrow needs 3 laptops. I've told him I've got them, I've told him they're ready. That's a lie, they're all in a bad state. I just thought I would take a 4th one off the shelf to be safe in case I need to salvage some parts from it. I'm not going to hold you up too much though, I just want to get straight on with these. I think the first thing to do is number them, and then once they've been numbered we can see what we're dealing with. Alright then, so what I've done is I've removed any identification from the bottom. So it had company barcodes on and stuff, I've gotten rid of all of that. Now laptop number 1 just says dead, right, that's all that's written on it. I don't know a thing about it. I know that these models have got a defect where the screw ends up falling into the housing, and that's happened here, and it hasn't happened on the other side. But the reason why it happens is the screws Lenovo use are just the heads on them are way too small. They've got housing issues as well, because these are fairly cheap models, but the machine says dead, and I'm not the one who put that sticker on, so I'm guessing that it has already been tested. It did come from another IT business, and all of their Windows 11 kit obviously got, well, upgraded to Windows 11, didn't it? And then sent out the door. So, as predicted, look, the housing's splitting apart. So if I just open, you can see that's Lenovo quality for you right there. Long gone are the days of the ThinkPad T430. If I hit the power button, oh, well, it's not dead, it's turning on. Okay, good start. It's clearly got a sticker on the top that says dead. But look, hey, it's come to life. And it's got an i5 8th generation, check that out. And that's kind of the point, right? i5 8250U means it'll run Windows 11. And the reason why I have 4 laptops is one of them is older, so it won't run Windows 11, and that's the one I'm going to use for parts. But right, looks like we have some housing damage. It's already got 8 gigs of RAM, which is good, and it's got an SSD inside as well. You can tell because the hard disk has a serial number. Alright then, that's not a bad start. I can repair the housing. Laptop number 2 then. First thing to note, DVD drive cover is missing. This screw is missing in its entirety, so is this one, that one, that one, that one. Right, this thing has no screws, so it's probably already been taken apart. I'd be very surprised if it's not dead. Chances are the company that I got this from have stolen loads of parts from it. Right, and you'll notice I'm just opening it slowly, yep, and pressing down in the corners because I am holding the hinge down in effect. Let's plug this in. And I don't care if it comes to life or not, but good, we've got these, so there's not a short on the 19-volt rail, because if there was you would see no light, no signs of life or anything. But I think that's all we're going to get. Chances are the RAM has been removed from this thing. Doesn't look to me like it's going to do anything. Can hear the fans going now, and the DVD drive even made a noise, but still appears to be dead. But when they say dead, we've got a caps lock light, and we have a power light, so that doesn't mean dead, that just means not giving a picture. So could be BIOS, could be a lack of RAM. As I was putting laptop number 2 down, I noticed that they've tried to super glue the hinge area. That's what happens when people who don't have enough knowledge work on these machines before you do. So this one actually opens okay, which surprises me. It's missing a key, but I'm not too worried about that. Let's plug it in. And it hasn't switched itself on, so maybe it is truly dead. Yes, it's truly dead. That's highly likely to be a short on the 19-volt rail. It should be a fairly simple fix. Fingers crossed. It could also be that the 3.3-volt rail is dead, in which case this laptop's probably not coming back. But we'll have to see, won't we? But yes, completely dead. And I remember now that this is one I've already looked at. Has a note on the bottom, that's my writing. Dead, needs motherboard repair, missing screws, and a big capacitor literally fell off when I opened it. So, maybe not. Right then, laptop number 4, or should I say laptop P for parts. I'm going to open it up. Okay, it hasn't gone snap, crackle and pop. I'd be very surprised if this hasn't had the RAM taken from it, because it won't even run Windows 11. So the companies that have these usually strip them for everything they've got. I'm not seeing much hope here either, to be honest. The first laptop I've decided to look at is machine number 2, and the reason for that is that it does come to life, sort of. But I know it'll run Windows 11, and because it vaguely comes to life, I've got some hope that it can be repaired. So what I'm going to do is take it apart, which shouldn't be difficult by the way, because it's effectively taking itself apart. Just crossing my fingers it's not water damaged. And we're just going to pop the screws, and please don't tell me they've super glued this side. Come on, don't do it. Oh, they've super glued the one side. It wouldn't surprise me. I don't want to use acetone because that'll start melting the plastic. No, okay, they haven't glued it. Right, so as predicted, look, there's no RAM in here. They've also taken the coin battery out, and the normal battery isn't plugged in. So this laptop is very, very likely to be dead. Let's just put a stick of RAM in. And you can see, yeah, this side is just destroyed. No hope for it. We'll plug the battery in. And I'm just having a look at the board, and I can't see anything jumping out at me. Right, so let's open it up a bit. Right, it's open. I'm going to hold it in place. I'm going to plug the charger back in, which obviously is on the other side, because why wouldn't it be? Oh, it's turned itself off and back on. That's normally a good sign. Right, I pressed the power button once, and it stayed on, which is a good sign, because if it turns off instantly, it usually means some sort of further damage. And a little trick you can do, by the way, which is going to be hard, because I've only really got one free hand, is to push down a little on the RAM stick, and then turn it back on. I'm not pushing hard, by the way, just gentle force. And the fan cuts off fairly abruptly, which, yeah, to me that screams fault with the BIOS. Right, the laptop stayed on when I unplugged the power, which means that the battery is at least vaguely taking a charge, or it's pretending to. Right, so let's just give up on this one for a moment, and we'll have a look at the parts machine. And for the first time today, I get to use my screwdriver. So I'm just going to take all the screws out and put them in my container. Now I'm wondering if they're all going to be the same size, or if they're going to be different sizes. Because normally the 4 at the bottom are a different size, and then the rest of the ones on the laptop are the same size. I think they're all the same size on this machine. And I can also tell you that an M2 screw with a head on it as small as that one is not suitable to hold down a screen hinge, and Lenovo would have known that. Right, that's all the screws removed. So I'm confident this thing hasn't even been opened, which will greatly increase our chances of success. These machines all have the same defects, by the way. They always crack around the Ethernet jack, right here. So, that's the machine open, and so far it's the only one with this piece of material inside. It's got the SSD. Question is, does it have the RAM? It does have the RAM. So what I'm going to do is unplug the internal battery. I'm going to remove the CMOS battery as well, which is this little thing. There we go. I'm going to take the RAM out. I'm going to put the RAM back in. Same as last time then, we'll just try switching it on. So the fan is quite dusty, so it's seen a lot of use, this laptop. Oh, God, just hear it cracking itself to pieces. Right, let's plug the power in, and it should switch itself on, which it has. Fan should start going, which it is. And if we're lucky, it will come back to life. Now, chances are this battery's dead anyway. I don't think it's going to come back to life, but you never know. It's sort of the first thing you should try on most laptops, is take the bottom cover off and unplug both the batteries. And if you wonder why I'm holding the machine open, number one, these aren't strong enough to hold it. But number two, if you let it close, then some of them just freeze in the boot process, because there's magnets inside the screen housing, and those magnets basically tell the laptop, oh, I'm closed now, so it thinks, obviously, it's shut. Oh, look at that, there we go, it's come to life. Oh my God, fine, yes, I accept that, but don't blow my ears out. Right, it's going to turn itself back on, but here we go, look, it's come back to life. i5 7200U, you can just about see. That's no good, it won't run Windows 11. But the good news is we have a motherboard that's otherwise healthy that we can take parts from. But yeah, what a shame, right? Just because it's a year too old, it won't run Windows 11. But hey, if I plug the battery in now, and I'm just going to pretty much switch it off and leave it plugged in for a while, and hopefully this battery will start taking a charge. But hey, that's a bit of good news. So we've got 2 of the 4 switching on and working, but only 1 of them is actually what we need. But hey, we're getting there. I decided to bring laptop number 2 into my kitchen. You can literally see it's just plugged in, wire trailing over the floor. I've stood it up like this so that I don't need to hold it, and I've put the good RAM stick from laptop, you know, the parts laptop in here. It's not looking good though. The processor is stone cold, and that's generally an indication there's nothing going on. So I think, to be honest, this one is going to need the information on this chip here, which is called the BIOS chip. This thing clearly isn't switching on, by the way, but I'm going to leave it plugged in because I can feel that the battery charging area is getting warm, and that means that the battery is taking a charge. You'll notice the fan is spinning permanently now, but it's spinning really, really slowly. Process is a tad warm, but it's obviously not working. Alright then, I'm going to remove the RAM, I'm going to remove the SSD, and then I'm going to do everything else that's needed to remove the motherboard from this laptop. Now, I'm removing the motherboard so I can do the modification to the BIOS chip, because you get some people who would just take the battery out and then apply loads of heat, but you can end up melting the keyboard on the other side of the palm rest if you're not careful. And it's a lazy way to do it. It doesn't take very long to remove the motherboard, so I would always rather do it properly, you know. Modern laptops put screws, they have the hinge rest on top of the motherboard, which I think is daft. Oh yeah, and that hinge is really tight for no reason. Well, I think the reason why they crank the hinges into oblivion is so that they break the machines they're connected to. Or should I say, so they damage the chassis on the machines they're a part of. The first thing you should always do though, when you're working on a laptop, is disconnect the battery, and you'll notice that the battery is disconnected, and it has been the entire time. Battery removed, put it out of the way, and I should now pretty much just be able to lift the board out. But you'll notice that, well actually I can't lift the board out yet because there's a fan in the way, but also there's this, well this should be plugged in underneath the board, but it's not plugged in. Now when you're doing these repairs, it's always about removing as few pieces as possible. I've kind of taken more out than I need to here, just, you know, to make it a little bit easier for you all to see what I'm doing. Right, here we are. This is free, and even better, we've got a part number on the motherboard. You can see right there, LV315KB MB. That's the part number you would put into Discord. Alright then, I apologise for the wall of text. What is important is this post here, where this person has basically asked the community for some help. He's dumped his BIOS file. All the details are the same as my board, and he's asked for some help. And then Lead Farmer down here has basically done the work, and 3 people endorse it. I've already downloaded this file, and we're going to flash it to our laptop. But in case you don't know, I'm on Discord, and I'm in the Electronics Repair School server. And I just headed down to BIOS request, and then pretty much went up here, typed in the relevant details, and that's all I had to do. I went down this list at the side a bit until I found something good. And then once I'd found it, did the download, and that's all I had to do. Alright, I'm definitely doing this with inadequate tools, but that's never stopped me before. So I've got my hot air set to 480 degrees, and we are going to melt this thing a little bit, but I'd rather melt the battery, the BIOS battery holder, than melt the keyboard connector. But I shouldn't need to leave the heat there too long. We're just 480 degrees, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Very gentle upwards pressure on here, and surprisingly it's already come off. That was actually easier than expected. But you can see now, I've got the chip. I'm going to put it into my programmer, and then once I've put it into the programmer, we'll be able to dump the data from it. Right, so you can see here then I've got the programmer, I've got the chip, and if you want to know what way it goes in, there's a tiny little circle on one of the 4 corners. It's at the top left corner here. I'll put this back down and I'll hit detect, and then usually it doesn't work. But this time it's got it in one. So if I bring it up to you, you can see I can choose SOP 8, we'll hit select. I was about to hit flash there, but I suppose the smarter thing to do would be to just to do a backup, wouldn't it? So I'll just hit read, and then read, and usually it'll tell me 1 or 2 of the pins aren't connected. But my god, it's working straight off the bat. Can't believe it. There we are then, it's read it. So I'll hit back, and then I'll hit save. And it's going to save it to my documents. Right, so that's the backup, and it's now saved. So now I can hit load, browse, and then I will choose my new file, or should I say the one that's from Discord. I'll hit OK. Then we'll hit program. Now what that does is it erases the chip, and then it writes this new data from this file that I've just inputted. It writes that to a chip instead. If you think I've been stood here in silence holding this laptop the entire time, you would be right. I've just stood here for 2 minutes like a lemon, listening to my neighbour play some sort of instrument badly. Anyway, let's hit back and close the software because it appears that it's worked. So now I'm just going to shut the lid of the laptop, and we'll get this chip put back onto the computer motherboard. So remember what I said about the little dot? That little dot lines up with a little white mark on the board, and if you do this sort of work all day, you'll know what I'm talking about anyway. And let's just apply the heat and put the chip back on. These chips aren't really designed for repeated heat cycles, but once or twice won't kill them. And if it does, that's the exact reason why I took a backup. Gosh, a lot of people like a microscope to do this sort of work, by the way, because it's bloody fiddly. I've turned my station off and I'm just going to hold down. Right, that chip is now soldered on. I believe I've soldered all the legs. If it doesn't work, I'll come back and add some more solder, but it looks fine to me. Right then people, the wire strip is back on the board. I'm just desperately trying to make some space on this desk of mine. And all I've done is plugged in the screen and the charging connector. That's pretty much it. Let's get the laptop open. And now that it is, I should be able to plug the power in. And we'll see very quickly if it wants to switch itself on and start working. It wouldn't hurt to connect the fan as well at this point, because I've got no indication if the laptop's actually alive. It should switch itself on automatically. And I can see the power LED is lit. Alright, so on my end the power LED is lit. Oh, we've got life! See, told you, BIOS fault. Haha! We have got life. Oh, right. Sweet, dude. That, my friends, is why we repair electronics. Brilliant. Just quickly as well, let's all take a moment to appreciate this ancient netbook. By the way, there's a Windows XP key for you if you need it. Ancient netbook, 2008, but it's still being used, you know, in the modern day. Just because this stuff's old doesn't mean it's useless. But anyway, enough banging on about how old my laptops are. This thing needs to be taken apart and it needs to be repaired. Now this is the one I've kind of been dreading. Anyway, same as before, let's get the screws removed, let's pop the back cover off. My apologies about the background noise. I'm not about to go upstairs and tell some 15-year-old kid, stop playing your instrument, dude. You know, that could be the next Kurt Cobain up there. It probably isn't, but it could be. See, the only thing I ever did when I was 15 was play games, and I got really good at them, by the way. And I do still enjoy gaming now, though I don't get as much chance to do it, of course. But yeah, my life would be a bit different if I didn't game, actually. I mean, I met my best mate gaming. We still talk to this day, 10 years later. Had a lot of fun back in the day. I remember running home from primary school to sit there and play Little Big Planet on my PlayStation 3. Now, they were the days. You know, sometimes we do yearn to go back to a time that was that simple. But right, that's enough rambling about a life that I'm never going to lead again. I'm going to get the parts taken straight out of this machine. I'm going to remove the motherboard from the housing. Now, if you're really eagle-eyed, you will notice that there's a capacitor missing here. And this one here is fine. But I peeled the tape off and this capacitor literally just fell off the board. Now that is called build quality. So what I'll do is I'm just going to take the motherboard out and we'll blitz through this because you've already seen it. Get this hinge open. Really had some difficulty there. And let's get the screen connector unplugged. Right, that's out. We'll remove the charging port. And I should now be able to pull the board. So there we are. Unplug the keyboard, and as usual, this one's unplugged. So I take the Wi-Fi card off, and the reason why I'm removing the Wi-Fi card is that it might be short. I'll put the multimeter there where it can be seen. I'll slide the board into view. I'm not going to give you all of the details because this could potentially take a little while, but I'm just trying to work out where the short is on this laptop. So if I put my two probes together, or should I say if I put that in there, that's now on ground, and so I touch any other ground point and it'll beep. So if I just start checking capacitors randomly, then we should hear a beep if it detects a short. And if it doesn't detect a short, by the way, you know, anywhere where you would expect to find one, then that's not good news. That's bad news. Because it means the 19 volt rail is probably okay. And to be honest, I'm not seeing too many places where you would actually check. Check right around the charging port. Now remember Soren said something about MOSFETs? I don't necessarily know that it's this exact model that has the issues. But no, in general, we seem to be okay here. Let's flip the board. Because if not, I'll plug a charger in and we'll start following voltage around the board. But it could be something to do with these MOSFETs. I remember there was some comment about these MOSFETs being faulty. Don't quite know. We'll come back to those MOSFETs. This shouldn't be beeping, that's fine. Yeah, it's not always as simple as just check every capacitor on the board. I mean, you see the videos on YouTube that make it look like a 10-second job. Oh, I just poked a capacitor and then took it off the board. Right, so this is beeping 1 ohm, and that's beeping 9 ohms. I would like to think that's the CPU, and thus it's fine. It is right on the back of the CPU, but I think the simplest thing to do here would just be to plug a bench power supply in. And when I've plugged the bench power supply in, put a thermal camera on it, see if anything gets hot. I know it's lazy, I know it's a bit of a cop-out, but this is a business at the end of the day, and I have the tools, so I may as well use them.
Hello everyone, I thought I'd do this bit as a voiceover because the audio quality ended up being really low for some reason. Anyway, I inject voltage, and I was expecting to get a draw of 0.1 amps, and I ended up getting a draw of 0.25. Besides that, I couldn't find any issues, so I reflowed the 2 pairs of MOSFETs, and that solved the problem.
I'm afraid I managed to let my phone die, so my apologies there, but this is what I've done to the board. So you can see I've soldered this capacitor on, and it's definitely not like the original, but the point is it's about the same height, it's lying down flat enough, it should be okay. And then what else did I do? As mentioned earlier, I reflowed these 2 MOSFETs with some flux, that's what the sort of substance around them is, and I reflowed these 2 MOSFETs as well. And that's all that I've done. It's only taken sort of 10 minutes of work, and I just grabbed the capacitor from a pile of spares that I've got. I've got another one here, but it's not needed. So admittedly, I did already plug a charger in, and I saw the power light now lit up, which is a good sign, but I haven't actually checked if it works, so I think the next thing to do is to get the laptop back into the housing. You're fairly familiar with this site now, so I will just cut to the chase. I'm going to open the screen up a bit. As usual, I've just plugged the charging port in and the display connector. So if I just hold this open, let's plug this in. Again, wouldn't hurt to plug the fan in, but whatever. I can see a power LED, so this time, yeah, let's put the fan in, why not? And we'll see if we get some fan spin. If Lewis Rossman was to... Ah, look at that! Come on, people! That's free for free. It switched itself off, which is fine. It's going to switch itself back on, all being well. Boom. That's another one fixed. Hey, not having bad luck today. I'm quite pleased with that, and I'm quite pleased with that little mod too. Right, this is good. To be honest, I'm probably going to message Chris and tell him that I can't do tomorrow, which is not how you run a business, but hey, no one's perfect. Either way though, we've got 3 out of 3 laptops. They're now back from the dead. And what I need to do now is just fix all of this horrible housing damage, which is easier said than done. A quick fix of this machine as well. This piece pretty much fell out when I opened it back at Recognition, so I just plopped it on and closed it up. But I've got super glue here, so I might as well glue it back on. And they tell you to only put the super glue on one surface, so that's what I'm going to do. Just going to squeeze plenty of it, not going to be shy. Now, the Mythbusters use 7 drops of super glue to hold an estate car in the air, yet I use 1,000 drops of super glue and nothing ever stays in place. Drop it on, and then when it's in place, I'm going to press down fairly firmly. I'm going to hold for a good 10 seconds. Cool, I've let go, that's where it needs to be, and I'm just going to leave it there to dry for the next sort of hour. Don't worry about all this glue squeezing out of the sides. It's not going to touch anything when the machine's closed, and it just ensures we're going to get a really strong bond. If this intro feels hastily recorded, that's because it is, but I thought it made sense to break this into 2 episodes, i.e. part 1 and part 2. Part 1, I get all the machines, I bring them all back to life, and then part 2, we stick the screens on them and test them. Now, if that sounds like a 5-minute job, it isn't. It's another 25-30 minutes of footage, and that's after I've edited it down. I've got hours of recorded stuff, but I don't think anyone wants to sit and watch me for 50 minutes, so I'm going to make it into a 2-parter, 2 different equally daft thumbnails, and then, I mean, all's well in the end, you know. I'll give you a spoiler, everything does end up working out, but it doesn't go quite as smoothly as I would have hoped. It takes me a lot longer. I end up spending a bit more money than I intended to spend, but, you know, I do manage to get there in the end. So if you'd like to see where these laptops end up going, then feel free to, you know, tune in for part 2 whenever it may come out. I'm expecting about a week's time, so that'll be 10th of October, something like that. Either way though, if you found this video useful, if it was, dare I say it, entertaining, then feel free to hit the like button, you know, it helps me out. I'm trying to grow the channel, trying to reach more people, spread the repair message, and more importantly, it's just, I mean, why would you throw stuff away, you know? Just fix it yourself, keep the money in your own back pocket, you save hundreds of pounds, and it's, in a lot of cases, it's not even much effort.
But anyway, that's all I've got time for today. So until the next time, I will see you later. And as always, take care. Goodbye for now.